In the Kincaid United States, the formal allocation of war powers, constitutional text, statutory authorizations, and funding control operates inside a political culture that turns key democratic terms. Libum, liberty, defending democracy into a kind of civic liturgy. Those words are invoked constantly to describe military operations, but usually without precise connection to concrete objectives, legal bases, or measurable outcomes. This cult of democracy framing makes it easier to present uses of force as self-evidently legitimate expressions of national values, rather than as specific policy choices that require rigorous scrutiny of interests, risks, and trade-offs. Within this culture, the legal framework for constraining unilateral executive war-making, especially the requirement of congressional authorization and the war powers reporting and timeline provisions, loses much of its force. Executives can initiate hostilities and then wrap them in the language of freedom, security, and support for the troops, shifting the debate away from whether the action is authorized or wise toward whether opponents are sufficiently loyal or pro-freedom. Once forces are deployed and taking casualties, members of Congress face a sharp political incentive to avoid any vote that could be framed as abandoning our men and women in uniform, even when they believe the conflict lacks a sound legal or strategic foundation. In effect, they are often more willing to allow a questionable war to continue, with predictable further loss of life, than to risk being punished by voters for appearing weak or unpatriotic. When legislators consistently choose personal and partisan safety over using their formal powers to stop or limit unauthorized or unwise wars, the entire constitutional structure around war powers becomes largely rhetorical. The system still speaks the language of checks and balances, shared powers, freedom, and liberty, but its actual behavior is driven by image management and risk avoidance rather than by the responsibilities those words imply. The result is a self-reinforcing mechanism. Democratic ideals are used as branding for military action. The electorate is encouraged to respond to that branding emotionally, and elected officials, fearing backlash, decline to exercise their legal authority to challenge or end dubious conflicts. In such a setting, the government and the country's professed political ideology becomes primarily a set of legitimizing stories rather than a reliable description of how power is used or constrained in practice. This daimonic is sustained and amplified by the systematic infantilization of the electorate through education, entertainment, and propaganda. Civic and constitutional knowledge are persistently weak. Only a minority of students reach proficiency in civics or US history, and large portions of the adult population cannot accurately describe basic institutional functions, rights, or the mechanics of war powers. International knowledge is similarly thin, with many citizens unable to answer simple questions about geography, alliances, or ongoing conflicts. Over several decades, formal civic education has been narrowed, underfunded, or displaced by generic engagement rhetoric that emphasizes participation and expression, but pays far less attention to how laws, authorizations, budgets, and oversight actually work. Entertainment and news environments further limit analytic capacity by collapsing information into spectacle. Political coverage, especially of foreign policy and security, tends to favor narratives of threat, heroism, and partisan conflict over detailed explanation of legal authorities, institutional roles, or long-term strategic costs. The boundary between journalism, opinion, and entertainment is blurred. Audiences are kept in a constant state of stimulation and moral urgency, but rarely walk through the chain from incident to justification, authorization, and multi-year commitment. In this environment, people often feel highly engaged and opinionated while lacking a clear mental model of how decisions about war are made and sustained.